All right, so let's continue on with materials, and now let's look specifically at mapping, okay, which is sort of a part of materials, an important part. So I'm going to work on this object right here, and keep this as you go along because I think we'll hand this part in when we get to the end of it. So I have this dark purple object selected, and I have to make sure I'm on the right one here. So currently I'm on the light pink one, pink, and so now I'm on pink dark. All right, so let's go down and look at the maps area. There's three that are particularly important, okay, that we need to cover, and then the other ones are sort of optional, right? Diffuse color, that's the color of the thing. If there's some kind of texture on here, wood grain, checkerboard or whatever it is, that is the color of it, diffuse color. And by the way, this little dot right next to it here, where it says none, that's a shortcut to the diffuse color space, but let's not use those because it gets kind of confusing. So diffuse color, that's just the color of the thing. Bump, that's bumpiness on the surface, like an orange might be a little bit bumpy, or a lot of things have some kind of irregularity to the surface, most things. And then reflection, okay? If you want to have a glass bottle or a tabletop or whatever, reflect surfaces, we have to know how to use that. And all three of these are kind of different. They work kind of differently. Let's look at diffuse first. Okay, so we just click where it says no map, and it opens up. You may have other stuff here. Under scan line, it's kind of, it kind of makes sense that they would be there, but the ones we want are all under general, okay? So just like everything else, it seems, there's uh, a parametric version and then there's a non-parametric version. So all these things are procedural or parametric maps, and bitmap is not. That's a picture, okay? Bitmap is another word for just like a JPEG or something like that. So let's look at some of these ones first. So, and a lot of these are pretty, marble looks kind of like marble. Some of them are kind of technical, but some are really simple, like let's say checker, okay? Double click on that, and now there's a checker on here, okay? How come we don't see it? If I hit F9, okay, there it is, but it's not showing in the viewport, all right? And that's because when you're in the map level, this thing says show, it used to say show map in viewport, but for some reason they've changed it to show shaded material in viewport, which is a little bit less clear to me, but if you click on that, there it is, okay? Generally speaking, with all the default settings, it will only show one map per material. So if you have say a bump map and a diffuse map, whichever one you have this turned on, and it will show that one. Okay, but to actually see what the whole thing looks like, I'll never get used to that. F9, okay, or just render, rendering, render. Okay, all right. So so when we put the map in, now this interface changed, right? And like, where's our previous thing, the description of this material? We're down a level, okay? And you can be down many levels, and you can have nested levels and linked things, and it's the material editor is actually um, deep and vast, okay? But this right here is go to parent. That means go back up. Okay, so now I'm here, all right? And you see there's that shortcut that I mentioned. There's a map there, and here's the map in diffuse, okay? If I want to get rid of that map and have no more, I can just take a no map and drag it on top of it. Now it's gone. But let's get that back again because we want to look at that. So checker. All right, so let's look at some of the controls here. The checker parameters are the ones that are specific to checker only, but these coordinates are kind of universal. So first off, in checker, I can change the color of these things if I want, whatever yellow checker with red or something. And I guess I have to turn show map on. All right. So let's try to get a handle on this coordinates thing. This is how the map is laid onto the surface. So there's always complications with this because pictures, bitmaps, are always rectangles, right? It's just so many pixels by so many pixels. And we're trying to wrap it on an irregular surface. It's relatively easy with a sphere or a box or something, but some are a lot more complicated than that. And if it's a reflection map, it's going to be an environment, meaning the environment is reflecting off the object. But this is just a texture map. Okay, so we don't need to change anything up here. Down here, okay, there's U, V, and W. All right. So and you'll see these terms throughout when you're working with maps, U, V, and W. And they're basically, when you're in 3D space, it's X, Y, and Z, right? Y is up and down, X is back and forth, and Z is in and out. Well, when you're on the surface of an object, it's UVW. Okay, it's kind of different. You're just not a point in space. You're moving around as a surface. So, U is up and down, V is back and forth, and W is in and out. Okay, which is not something you normally do. So that's why it has U and V here. It doesn't really make sense to move the bitmap into the object. So offset this, we'll move it left to right. And tiling, so it says 1 by 1. So what that means is 1 unit of the checkerboard, right, is two red checkers and 2 yellow checkers, forming a square, four checkers in this case, right? And so if it tiles 1 time, that's how big the map has to be to completely fill the object. If I make it 2 by 2, okay, now I have 2 by 2 units of checkers, right? So the larger you make the numbers, the smaller the map gets. If I make it 0.5, I don't think this will be very obvious with the checker. Yeah, it's not. But if I make it 8 by 8, okay, there's a nice checkerboard thing. And these angles are, in this case, the only one that makes too much. I don't hardly ever use these, but the one that in this case makes sense is W, because that's the axis that's going in, but you're pinning it on that and rotating it that way, which makes sense. Rotating with these two is not as common, but I think we can kind of probably not need to use those. And if you're just trying to make something that was upside down, right side up or whatever, you just try 90 or 180 in these, and or 270, and numbers that go into 360 by a quarter or a half. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting sidetracked on that. So now we can also put maps in here. So let's try that. Might be getting a little complicated here, but we'll just click on one of these. And let me try a bitmap. And let's see. Here's a leaf. Okay, I'm not sure if how that's going to show. Let's see how it renders. Okay, so see, it's like instead of the red, now there's the leaf there. And if I went into this one, it has its own coordinates. And if I made this tile, 10 by 10, I have no idea what this is going to look like. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that because don't really need that there. All right, so we use checker. Okay, let's try, and if we apply the same material here, all right, you get that. And the checkers look smaller here because it's 8 by 8, and this is over the entire surface of the sphere, and this is on one side. All right. If you look and modify, these are parametric objects, right? And they have generate mapping coordinates turned on them. Okay. If you have them turned off, it'll probably with a check. It still shows there, but oops, thought I turned it off. Turned it back on again. Weird. Huh. Okay. Anyway, parametric objects you usually have generate mapping coordinates turned on by default. If it's some editable object that you made or a lathed object or something, we may have to use things we can look at in the future, other ways to get the map to lay onto the surface. All right, so let's see. Okay, so that was diffuse, right? Go to parent to get back up there. Let's try something else other than checker. So I'm going to go to new map. All right, and now I'm going to click on this, and let's try. How about marble? Okay, it's not a very convincing marble. And show map and viewport. Oh, it's because I guess so these have X, Y, and Z in them, but maybe if I make it, it seems a little. How about 0.2? All right, so it's just another thing in the diffuse slot. We can also put pictures in though, kind of like we saw that leaf. So that's, you click on this, and instead of marble, right? Well, actually, I'll do it the way I did it before. You can just get rid of it, okay? If I didn't get rid of it, I can just click here, and then instead of marble, I can go back to choose another one. All right, this is going to take a little getting used to. It's really not that complicated, but it's probably going to seem kind of foreign. So here I am. Let's try a bitmap. Okay, so let's take that leaf again that I downloaded. And so there's just a leaf of 1. If I want 5 in one direction, okay, and 2 in the other direction, so we can control it that way. Let's try making a wood grain for the table. Okay. So I got a new material here, right? We're going to start one from scratch. Click on physical if it is physical, and just go to standard under scan line. Okay, I'm going to apply it to the table right up front. And let's give it a little bit of glossiness here. And we'll get some wood grain. Now, there's sort of a secret to Googling for surface textures. If I just do a Google for wood, I find a lot of things like, stacked firewood, and so, some of it's good, but some of it's not. So the secret signal here for other computer artists is to put in the word texture, and you're always going to find something more or less what you want. And when you're downloading it, don't right-click on the icon and take that, because the icon is much smaller. Let me find a nice looking. Maybe this one. Okay, so get the big one, and then save image as, and so that's wood. like, here we go. So it's the table I did, right? And I want to make it reflective, so that'll be a new thing. And I want to make it the wood grain. So go to my maps. So diffuse, bitmap, and then here's some kinds of wood. I think that's the one we just downloaded. All right, that looks kind of nice. Let's apply it to that surface. Came out pretty good right off the bat. All right, so this is all going to look a lot better when we get lights in that have shadows, but for the moment, this is cool. So let's put some reflection in there, okay? So next to reflection, now you have a couple of options here. You can use a bitmap for the reflection, or you can use ray trace. Those are the two best ones. So ray tracing is it actually follows the ray of every light you're seeing from your light generating from your lights, and the rays from them where it bounces around and comes out through the monitor or to the picture. So that's going to give us a pretty there are a few other ones that are less realistic. That's going to give us the most realistic looking reflection. And bitmap is just reflecting an object like a cloudy sky or something, and it'll make it look kind of like it's chrome. It's completely non-realistic because it's not using the real environment. But for some things like little screws or something that nobody can see, it'll make them look like they're shiny chrome, and it won't matter if they're not exactly right because it renders a lot faster than ray tracing does. So let's go to ray trace for this one. So I did go in the reflection spot, right? So I click on reflection and ray trace. And right up here is a little checkerboard thing. I can put a checker background in it. Now I can see that my wood is now 100%. If I go to parents, it's 100% reflective, right? There's nothing is 100% reflective. Like if you go to the barber shop and get between the two mirrors so you can see down to infinity, eventually it fades to gray because even a mirror is not 100% reflective. So, but let's see what it looks like. F9. I'm just going to keep doing that. F9, and actually that doesn't look that bad. But normally, to make a scene look realistic, you have to draw the whole room and everything, even everything that's behind you. You have to put them in there so everything's reflective. It's kind of like they're just in space. So we can turn this down to like, if we want to just make it look a little reflective, let's see how 20 looks. Not bad. I think for a table that's not super shiny, I maybe even like it lower. I'll try 10. I'm just clicking in the background so I can keep hitting F9. That's kind of cool. With shadows in there, that'll look good. And it's partly because it looks a little funky because there's not proper lights in the scene, but you have to do one thing first, right? And so we're doing materials first. Inside ray trace, there's a bunch of things in there, but just for keeping things simple, let's ignore them all. I think we can just say it's ray trace and then just, how much it's turned on, and that can do it. I'll make it a little brighter now. All right, let's go back to this thing. I'm going to put this blue on that one. And let's see if we can make this one look like an orange. All right. So I'm going to get rid of the diffuse color there. And I'm going to make it orange. Okay, so that's sort of like an orange, right? Now what we want to do here is a bump map, I think, because oranges have a little bit of bumpiness to them. Let's see. bump. So you notice all these are at 100, but bump, the default is 30. Just because 100 is almost always going to be too much, and usually 30 is. But so these are three different kind of maps, right? The diffuse is the color of it. The reflection is the environment that's reflected on it, and bump is irregularities in the surface. But this is done with it's grayscale. The map, it's the lightness and the darkness of the map that makes it look bumpy. The map or the picture can have color in it, but it doesn't have any effect on it. And some other things like specular level and glossiness, those are grayscale maps also. So anyway, click on bump, and let's try, different. You can always use a picture or something, or like noise is pretty good. Let's try cellular, because I think we can make something that looks quite a lot like an orange with cellular. Let's turn on the map. Just zoom in so I can see it. Let's make this, I don't know what size your chips are. Looks like frog eggs. All right, so let's render that and see how it looks. That looks pretty, I would say they're a little too big. Your whole scale, depending on how big you drew your table and your sphere. Let's see, my sphere it's 17. The radius is 17 approximately. So, but it doesn't really matter. Just make your sizes big or small. That looks a little too big to me. So how about 0.5? 0.5. All right, that looks kind of like an orange. Now, bump maps don't have any effect on the edge. Okay, the bumps don't actually stick up. It's just a kind of like an illusion. I mean, the whole thing's an illusion, but it's just in the surface. It's not on the edge. I'm going to change my number of segments up to 64. You need to do a normal map if you want to see them on the edge, but we're not getting into that. All right, so I'm going back up to parents. And let's see here. Let's give a little bit of reflection too, right? So I'm going to go to reflection. And let's just throw a ray trace on there. Go back up to parent again. And let's try 30%. Now, there's not a lot of stuff showing in this scene, so I don't know. It should be able to pick up a little bit of it's reflecting a few things that are in there. If there's nothing to be reflected, if it's a sphere by itself in the middle of emptiness, you won't see anything. So you have to have objects that can be reflected. This is this teapot. It's been in 3ds Max since it was the beginning of 3D Studio, and it has some, you can kind of see through it. So you need a two-sided material on this to not have those artifacts, but let's not worry about that right now. Let's make a copy. Let's make one more material, but do it with a bitmap reflection instead of a ray trace. All right, so I'm going to copy this sphere. Okay, copy that instance. Actually, forget that. Let's do it on the teapot. So I'm making a new material, standard in Scanline. Just give it a little something there so it's shiny. Put that on the teapot. And all right, so we're going to do a bitmap for our reflection. So reflection, and don't do refraction, okay? That's for transparent object that bends light, refracts it like thick glass. And that's a very time consuming to render and not what we're trying to do. So reflection, And I'm going to put a bitmap on here. And I guess I need to get a proper bitmap. So let's go back here and cloudy skies. Oh yeah, so something like this will work. Save images. And sorry, I forgot where it was. So reflection, bitmap, and here's my cloudy skies image. And should already be on there. A reflection will never show in the viewport, but, and I'm just clicking the background and then F9. So there it is. There's a shiny chrome teapot. All right, so like I said, it's not realistic, but you can use it to make some things, usually small or distant objects. Okay, you can make things look kind of chrome if they're not in relationship to anything else, like a spaceship in the middle of space and you can't see, it's not reflecting anything. Let's put a ray trace on that though. So we can just drag the no map on top of there and then click on reflection and ray trace, and let's just keep it shiny. Okay, so that's a bunch of objects. Let's do something else. We'll just do one more. Let's see if we can think of something to do with this pink one. And we'll put it. So I selected both objects, apply material selection. So I got it on both these guys. All right, let's go to diffuse and how about noise? Some of these things, particularly like noise, the scale of it in the viewport isn't always the same as the scale when you render it. You just have to render to see. Okay, so maybe I'll turn that. Mine's at 0.6, so I'll go down to 0.1 or something. Oh, now I don't see anything. Oh, wait a minute. I was thinking backwards. How about 1? How about 2? All right, so we put, and you know, like the checkerboard, the noise can have 2 different colors here or 2 different maps here. Let's try putting that bump using the same texture in the bump. So take this guy and drag it right down the bump. And do we want to instance it so they're the same? Do we want to just copy this down? Or do we want to swap them so then this will become no map? Let's just do copy. So if we want to change one, it'll be okay. The other one won't change. And let's see if that does anything obvious. Yeah, see, it made bumps. All right, so we used exactly the same map, and since it happened to be a black and white map, it worked perfectly. So that's kind of cool. All right, so set your camera up so it's so you can see what's what, and let's render that out and hand that guy in. So I'm going to go render setup. I'm going to make it a little bit. We're in scanline still, right? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and then I'm going to. You can just render, and then just click on the little screen image and save it as a JPEG, right? to wherever you want to put it, or you can go to Files and just say, make sure your save as type is JPEG, and then, materials, blah, 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 and save. Okay to this, just make that thing up on best. I think we've been through this before, but anyway. And then just make sure that didn't actually render it, right? You still have to say render. And now it rendered it to that file. That's how I usually do it, although sometimes if I'm trying to do stuff fast, I just hit the little save image instead. So let's hand that in. So we got a look at materials and maps, and now after that we'll try specifically applying them to the guitar and see, and also an environment for the guitar, and see if we can make it look good.